Hello? Hello, Bryan?
Yeah, just a minute. Hey, listen, sorry, I don't have a lot of time. It's Bryan from This, That, and the Other. Look, okay, I want to tell you everything. I want to tell you the truth about wood. You want to know about the real stuff? You want to know why the earth is hollow and why we're being run by aliens? You want to know about the stuff they're putting in your Gatorade and why you should be eating your dogs and why renewable resources are a lie and we're living inside of a hologram. And I'll tell you all this, but you have to listen to This, That, and the Other. You have to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. Don't tell Sam, though. Don't tell him.
What are you doing? Are you making an ad without me?
No, listen, I gotta go. Subscribe to This, That, and the Other.
You bastard.
9/11 was a lie. What happened to Bill? Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Bryan, and this is What's Hood with FC, a straight down, gritty look at the Latinx community and culture, brought to you by the Binge on this network. I hope everybody's okay, I hope everybody's doing all right by the time you guys hear this and have it in your brain. We're going on month 3 or 4 of quarantine. I am currently in Santa Monica right now, recording during the curfew hours. It has been a wild couple of days. Unless you've been living underneath a rock, then you are well aware of the protests and the riots and the looting and the overall atmosphere of human rights that has taken over this country. And it has all been sparked by the murder of George Floyd. By 4 Minnesota police officers. Now, I was supposed to record this like 3 days ago, and I didn't really know what I should say or what I should record, because this show for me and for FC was predominantly about the Latinx culture. It was something that really we wanted to push and frankly adhere to as far as our message and what we put out through the Binge on this network. And this isn't the first time that an unarmed black man has been murdered on camera, and it's certainly not going to be the last time. Less than a month beforehand, we watched the lynching of Ahmaud Arbery by two men claiming to be defending themselves, to be defending their property. And it can only, we can go down the list. And I could name off 100 different names of 100 different black African Americans who have suffered at the hands of the police and who have suffered at the hands of the corrupt system that still exists today in the United States of America. But again, this is a Latinx show. It's a Latin culture show. So before we kind of dive into what I want to talk about today, I would like to just say one thing, and this is just me, the real _Hawaiian Bryan. This doesn't necessarily reflect the show as a whole or the network as a whole. This is just me and my thoughts. But I want it to be known that coming from a man who doesn't know and can say that he doesn't know what it's like to be black, but can say that he does know how it feels when it comes to being judged by your color. And I say it a lot, and I've said it before, walking while colored is not a crime. It should not be a crime. You should not be. But that's just the way it is. It's the way the system's set up. It doesn't. But what I'm trying to say here is the Black Lives Matter movement is just that, specifically for the Black Lives Matters. And this is coming from someone who would be like, well, all lives matter. Shouldn't we all, from a humanitarian and universal point of view? But again, this is when I first thought about recording this and, was just thinking off the top of my head. After I took a step back and I looked back at everything that's been happening and the way that, the Latin community has been, rising up to support, our Afro-American brothers and our black queens and kings, we have to acknowledge it for what it is. It is their time. Our time will come, and our suffering and our trials and tribulations will come to light as time goes on, and that is a matter of just the world getting bigger, technology being quicker, people falling in love and interbreeding amongst cultures and races, and we'll get to a point where we'll all be golden brown with blue eyes and blonde hair, and we'll look like the people from Dune. But to say that all lives matter at this particular point takes away from the validity, the honest to God portrayal of the police system versus the black man. Because like FC says, we didn't come on a boat. Us Hispanics, Mexicans, Colombians, paisanos, paisas, whatever you want to call us, we didn't come here on boats. You know what I mean? Like we're from here. This is our land. This is who we are. This is our, just like the Native Americans didn't come here from a boat. We were here. This is our land. We were interrupted. We had invaders show up, and they conquered us, and they defeated us, and we became mestizos. We got mixed. But the African American man was taken from his homeland, sold by his own people in some cases. And this conversation isn't necessarily about slavery as a whole, because slavery has existed since day one. And whether it's white men enslaving other white men, black men enslaving black men, even Hispanics enslaving other Hispanics, which has happened and been proven time and time again between the Mayans, the Incas, the Aztecs, everybody at one point or another had slaves. It's just part of the power dynamic when it comes to conquest and when it comes to spreading your seed, ideologically and culturally. So I don't want us to focus necessarily on slavery, because again, it is what it is, and it happens, and it does happen, and all we can do is just make sure that those same mistakes don't happen. But for us, again, as the Hispanic community, we don't have that sense of non-belongingness. Because we belong here. This is our land. This is la tierra. This is who we are. Our blood, our sweat, our tears is in this soil, all the way from, Texas south to the tip of Argentina. And I can say that now with a little bit more confidence as I've been reading more about, Colombian nationalism and how everybody, how South America as a whole, Central America as a whole came together. And now that I have a little bit more understanding, a little bit more information, I can say with a little bit more certainty that I don't necessarily feel out of place the way I imagine African American people feel. And it's the truth, because like I said, we're from here. Our land is this land. This is our land. The African man or the African American man can't say that because he's not. This isn't his land. He was brought here. He was forced to come here. And so I want everybody to think about that when it comes to these events. The real _ Hawaiian Bryan. I don't speak on the views of Binge on this. I don't speak for Forever Cabron. I don't speak for the show What's Hood. I speak for myself. So when I say that what's going on right now is truly a black issue, an issue that has been centralized on the black man from the police state, from the government, from the white man who brought him here, then I believe in that statement, and I believe in that cause. And I don't want to take away from that by saying, well, all the lives matter, because in this particular case, in this moment in time, that's not the case. It's not the case, because we as a people, the culture that we exist on here in America, the slave trade that this country was built on, exists very much so right now in our prison industrial system, in our minimum wage system, in capitalism as a whole. It's always gonna be here until we all take a second to sit back and attack. And when we all take a second to sit back and organize, like Killer Mike said, if we can just, these are the moments and the times not to be looting and to be running out there and taking advantage of these situations and causing more strife and alienation amongst ourselves and our people and our supporters. These are the moments where we should be all sitting back in a non-violent protest type of way, and we should be asking ourselves, how can we make sure that the youth, the young African American vote, how can we get these numbers of these protesters and the looters and the rioters? How can we get these people out to, and I know it sounds insane, but how can we get these people out to the voting booths? And this is coming from me, a man who doesn't believe in the voting system, who doesn't believe in those type of things. And the reason why I say that now more with a little bit more confidence is because we can't organize ourselves as a people to go after the ones that have hurt us. You can go back and see the footage of what's been going on for the past week. And again, a lot of this stuff has been agitated by Antifa supporters. It's been agitated by the police system. There's a lot of underhanded, backlisted stuff going on right now that isn't necessarily, that is being riled up by the media. Again, I'm asking you and I'm pleading with you to listen to this with an open mind and to see all of the images and all of the Instagram posts and all of the Twitter feeds that are coming through, and to digest those things with the sensibility of someone who understands that there are three sides to a story: their story, the other person's story, and the truth. And we have to not only be true to ourselves when we are making those decisions and having those discussions with our family members, but we have to be able to adapt and mold our way of thinking to new information, which is unfortunate because now we live in this day and age where there's so much fake news and there's so much fakeness out there that it becomes very difficult to decide what is real and what is not, because there will always be someone, or even yourself, who will sit there and say, well, this is on Huffington Post, or this is on, even at this point, the New York Times, or even the LA Times. These publications and these broadcasts, they aren't and never have been secure. And so I'm kind of all over the place here, but what I want to say is, from what I can say on our end, for What's Hood with FC, and for the Binge on this network, and for me, the real _Hawaiian Bryan, is we do stand with Black lives, and we do stand with the modern day slave known as the African American man. But we also need them to understand, and we need everybody who stands arm in arm and side to side during moments and events like these, that you can't make and do actions based on emotion, because it's only harming you, your cause. It's only making it difficult for other people to support this whole thing. What's it going to take, and for the Latin community as well, but what is it going to take for this type of outpouring and for this type of resilience to appear when it's black on black crime, when it's brown on brown crime, even when it's Chinese on Chinese crime, or Korean or Asian or whatever? What's it going to take for us as a people, as a unity, as a culture, to look at ourselves and our inner strifings and our inner conflicts within our own people, within Mexicans and Salvis and people who shouldn't even be arguing, people from the same. What is it going to take for us as a people to look back and say, hey, this is what we need to do to be productive and to build on our identities as not only the original inhabitants of this great country, but also as the future and the example for our children and our children's children, because again, this isn't going to go away anytime soon. And unless we plan on start attacking the right things, the right people, it's just going to keep on getting worse and worse. And so with that being said, I would like to talk a little bit about a few notable Latin deaths, Latinx, deaths at the hands of the police that I found and kind of went over and looked at, and I'm going off a few sources here, so none of this is, obviously I urge you to always go out and make your own informed decision about the things we talk about on the show. So I want to start off with just, and again, you know what they say about statistics, right? They say 35% of statistics are all made up, statistically speaking. That's a little joke, a little white guy joke. But from what I've checked on my side, as of this year, right now, as of this year, there have been 13 Hispanic deaths by police in the United States. In this year alone. Last year we had 158 deaths. 158 deaths. Now you'll hear people kind of get into, the Hispanic community makes about 17% of the United States population, and of course all these statistics and these numbers are going to be different and skewed depending on which set of information that you're looking at. But 13 Hispanic, Latin men and women have died at the hands of the police as of this year. 158 last year, 158 back in 2019, 148 in 2018, and 179 in 2017. So we have also been suffering at the hands of the police. There's no question about that. Now, why there isn't as much uproar or why there isn't as much news coverage about these things, I couldn't speak for certain or say for certain why that is exactly. It could in all honesty, it could be a point of view thing. Maybe those types of situations. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. I tried to look up and I tried to see exactly what why, or why there hasn't been as many updates on police brutality when it comes to Latin Americans. So who knows? That could be for a number of reasons. And so, but let's start off with just a few. Like I said, I went over a few statistics there in regards to how many of our Hispanic community have died in these past couple of years. And of the incidents involving, and this is back in 2017, involving 741 civilians, 43% of them were Latino, with 30.2% of them being something else. And again, just some numbers, some ideas for you guys to get a better understanding of exactly, why we speak the way we do in that regard. With of those 172 fatalities back in 2017, 15.1 of them were 15% of them were black, while there was just 1% of them were of Asian descent. Now, There are two cases in particular that I want to focus on in today's episode of What's Hood. Number one is one of the other things that I noticed when I was researching is the problem is a person can be both Latino and black. So a lot of these percentages and a lot of these numbers could be including both in them, statistically speaking. We know, of course, that slaves were brought over by the Spanish during the conquistadores when they came over, and when they would breed with the natives of the land, and thus creating, a lot of Latin Afro Latinos, such as all of us, basically. But from and this is from the PBS.org article I found titled the PBS article titled "Why Aren't More People Talking About Latinos Killed by Police?" From the July 14th, 2016 article. There's a lot of challenges in reporting cases for the Latino community in particular because of questions around identity. We just don't have enough information to document all the cases that are occurring, certainly not by race and ethnicity. But there's a recognition more broadly that deaths at the hand of law enforcement are having too many racialized outcomes. So a lot of it has to do with poor track records of coverage by Latino political organizations and, the media, obviously. Whereas many of the high-profile cases of black Americans killed in police custody reached the national spotlight after sparking outrage because of black media and activist groups, there tends to be a general absence in coverage of Latino groups. And if they're not covering, it's pretty hard to see how national media will come up on it. So, again, it kind of boils down to, we got to back each other up when it comes down to it. We need to be as loud as Black Twitter is when it comes down to Latin men and women being killed by the police force. And that's, something that the article points out as well. Another thing that affects it is that local law enforcement were at the time and still are signing agreements to act as immigration enforcement agents in many communities. So at that point, they were essentially empowered to do things that in some ways would enhance the probability of abuse and profiling. So all of this is a culmination culminates for a much larger reason as to why we aren't being heard as much when it comes to major events as far as deaths are concerned. Pardon me. I want to start off today, and we're already fucking halfway through the episode, so I apologize, but I do want to finish it off by mentioning two cases in particular. Number one, Pedro Villanueva. On July 3rd, 19-year-old Pedro Eric Villanueva of Canoga Park in Los Angeles was fatally shot by undercover California Highway Patrol officers while fleeing a sideshow motoring event. Essentially what happened is CHP set up a undercover sting to catch racers at the Santa Fe swap meet. They were in undercovers, they showed up, and everybody, ran, booked it. Pedro, unfortunately, left doing about 90 miles per hour in his vehicle, a red Silverado truck, and he booked it from the scene. Essentially, he just left, and he turns off into a cul-de-sac. So he turns off into a cul-de-sac. He's followed by an unmarked California Highway Patrol car with no dash cam, by the way, at this point. No dash cam in 2016 because they were currently undercover. They enter a residential area out in Fullerton, California, and they fire multiple shots into the truck, killing Pedro and wounding his friend. Now, you ask yourself after hearing something like that, shooting a car, like just blasting open on the car. Yeah, blasting open on the car. They used, apparently this tactic is still approved by some police departments. Most major police departments have banned it. Los Angeles, New York, a lot of other major U.S. cities have banned this operation. Again, California Highway Patrol officers operate under a different jurisdiction. So, basically what happens is a police officer is able to essentially shoot at a moving vehicle to attempt to stop the vehicle. But let's get real here, all right? If you guys think a bullet is going to stop a 4,000-pound car, that's not the case. You and I both know this. It's a matter of trying to stop the shooter or trying to stop the driver by shooting him. And what most sane police departments realize is that you shoot the person who's driving the car, that missile that has some type of guidance at that point becomes an unguided missile, which means you're more likely to have that car crash into a building or kill an old lady or hit somebody. And so that's why that's banned. But the undercover California Highway Patrol officers, which, like I said, were part of a larger detail trying to get the street racers at the Santa Fe Springs swap meet, had no lights, had no sirens, had no dash cams, and they followed Pedro Villanueva from Canoga Park into a small residential area. And when he turned around in the cul-de-sac at around 10:50 p.m., he did a U-turn, drove towards the officers, and the officers opened fire. Villanueva died at the scene. There was an 18-year-old passenger that was in there with him as well. He was shot in the arm, but he survived. Now, CHP has a use of force policy. Officers are allowed to use deadly force to stop the commission of an assault with a deadly weapon, including situations where a moving vehicle is considered the weapon. So in this particular case, they chose to use that use of deadly force because they were under the impression that they were about to get run over by the truck. Okay. Here's the other side of it, right? You're driving around in your truck. All right, you just did 90. You booked it from the Santa Fe Springs. I don't condone, I get it. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And please remember, I'm taking this from the step as a man who is omnipotent, that in the sense that the way I speak is a man who is Anubis, who is struggling between the weights of a man's sin and the weights of a man's decisions of who he is as a person. And so yes, was he somewhere that he shouldn't have been at the time? Yes. Did he leave doing excessive speeds, potentially putting other people at harm? Yes. Does that mean that kid should have died doing a U-turn? No, not at all. If those kids, those boys, those white kids, and again, they are white kids, the ones who shoot up the schools and the ones who shoot up the movie theaters and the ones who kill their parents and murder their parents and do all this wild shit, if they can get brought out of their houses without getting hurt, if they can get handcuffed and they can get a bulletproof vest put on them, and they can proceed to act properly, then why can a young 18-year-old man not be able to be warned and controlled, and frankly just be told, step out of the vehicle with your hands up, come out of the vehicle, and it didn't happen, and it couldn't happen. And because of that, Pedro Villanueva, 19-year-old kid who played soccer, and he worked at his parents' Mexican grill, and he was just like a kid, and he was just like a guy, and he was just at the wrong place in the wrong time. And it just breaks your heart because George was just a guy, and he matched the description, and Pedro, Pedro Villanueva was just a kid. He was just a boy, who thought he was probably getting robbed or who thought he was getting mugged because a car had been following him into a dark cul-de-sac, into a neighborhood that he didn't know. And when he turned around and he tried to get away, they shot him. They shot his car up. It's things like that. It's making decisions and teaching the youth and the children to just think with. I just think about all the times that I could have been or I have put myself in positions, that have just put me so close to losing everything. And it just I'm so thankful and so blessed that the universe has seen fit to keep me around as long as it has. And I hope it's because my job is to try and bring some type of information or some type of some warning to these kids and these children, and even my sisters, and to women and to everybody, just everything, just to have done just what they can. And so Pedro Villanueva, we remember you. We remember you the way we remember George Floyd, and I'm we love you, brother. We love you. And the second person I want to talk about is a young man by the name of Anthony Nuñez. Now, Anthony Nuñez was a mentally unstable young man. He was 18 years old in San Jose, California. He had previously tried to commit suicide. He was disturbed. He was not in a good place. And so when Pedro Villanueva on July 4th, 2016 experienced a suicidal breakdown in front of his East San Jose home, he was fatally shot by 2 San Jose police officers to death. He died at 18 years old. Now, the use of excessive force was validated by the officers in their official report by saying that Nuñez had a gun, and that he had twirled the gun. He had twirled the gun before he had pointed it at them. Death by cop suicide. Okay, so the officers weren't wearing body cams at the time, which again were just being issued at the time in San Jose. But a lot of it, like I said, hinged on the officers versus the people, right? So 3 years later, on July 3rd, 2019, a federal judge found the same San Jose police officers guilty of using excessive force when they shot Nuñez during his suicidal breakdown. In the verdict, it was recommended that the Nuñez family was awarded a $2.6 million reward, which was represented by Sandy Sanchez, the woman who raised Nuñez from childhood. What happened was, in those 2 weeks, the argument was based on the .38 revolver, and if the actions done by Nuñez at the time were enough to warrant the excessive force, if the officers' lives were threatened. Now, I want to point out, first thing, number one, Nuñez had already shot himself or tried to shoot himself twice by the time the cops had shown up. Twice. Okay? Number two, the official police account said that Nuñez twirled the gun and then raised it up at the officers. It was the whole focal point of the trial, okay? But the neighbor, Charles Thomas, gave a key witness testimony saying that he got a clear look at Nuñez and saw that he did not see a gun being held by Nuñez before veteran officers Michael Santos and Anthony Vizuzzi opened fire. Three years. It took 3 years for the city of San Jose to bring charges. It took 3 years for It took 3 years, and here's the thing too. You know, those officers are going to be going through an appeal process. You know, and Police Chief Eddie Garcia continues to defend the officers. You know, he continues to defend the officers who, by the way, were cleared of criminal wrongdoing by the Santa Clara County District's Attorney Office back in 2017. Garcia. It'd be your own people. It'd be your own people. Garcia, shot down by Michael Santos and Anthony Vizuzzi. Your own people, man. It's your own people. So there you go. Two little known examples, little known to me, examples of Latinx men, in this particular case, Latinx men who were murdered by the police and who didn't receive the national spotlight that they should have. And I hope that we did right by them by even doing this little bit for them on the show. And that's it, guys. I wish I had more to say about the subject, but I really don't. If you guys have any questions, any concerns, send us an email at bingeonThisChannel@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at What's Hood with FC and at Binge on This Channel on Instagram. Make sure to follow us on YouTube by searching Binge on This, where you'll find all the great shows. What's Hood with FC, Happy News with Perry Kurtz, This, That, and the Other, Olden Times TV, Reading Ronin, and of course our flagship show, Roll 420s, our high fantasy D&D Dungeons and Dragons game for the everyman. So before I sign off, I just want to tell you guys that I love everyone who listens to this. I'm so appreciative of everyone who takes the time to download this show in particular, because it means a lot to me that I have people like, FC, and I have people like, Sam and myself who are doing our best, doing what little we can to support our culture and our communities, specifically the Hispanic community. And so I just want to say, I love you, te amo, gracias por todo. Look out for each other. Always record police interactions. Don't be afraid to be a witness. Don't be afraid to scream and to yell. And, you can go listen to my This, That, and the Other episodes and hear me have an existential crisis about what you should do when you see something like George Floyd happening or Ahmaud Arbery, or what you should do. And my only piece of advice to you guys is to follow your heart and to follow your gut and just to be good to each other, and to love each other, and just, we'll catch you at the next light.